I'm here today to talk about tobacco and its relationship with North Carolina. Tobacco and North Carolina have a long history together. It's been an important crop in the area since European settlers came here. Its influence as a cash crop has allowed people who made their fortunes initially in the tobacco business to spread their influences into other fields. Even today, when the health risks of tobacco are well publicized, the history of tobacco here causes its presence to be felt by North Carolinians in many aspects of everyday life. Tobacco was one of the most common crops grown in North Carolina in the 19th century. The creation of bright-leaf tobacco, also known as yellow tobacco, in 1839 allowed North Carolina to become the dominant area for tobacco production in the country, which it is still today. They produce twice as much tobacco as the second leading state, Kentucky. Interestingly enough, according to an NC State Online exhibit about the history of tobacco, bright-leaf tobacco was discovered initially by a slave named Stephen, desperate to keep the fires going in the tobacco barn after falling asleep. According to North Carolina and Global Economy, huge tobacco companies such as Lorillard, R.J. Reynolds, Leggett Vector all trace their origins in the state and still have their headquarters here. Those corporate names may not sound familiar, but they own brands such as Camel, Pyramid, Winston, Salem, and Newport. Arguably, the most important North Carolinian who made their money in tobacco was James Buchanan Duke. According to his Duke University biography, he was born in 1856 in Durham, North Carolina. Duke became the president of the American Tobacco Company in 1890 and helped make that company a multinational conglomerate that controlled the American tobacco industry at the turn of the century. American tobacco was so large that the Supreme Court forced it to be broken up, declaring it a monopoly in 1911. However, this market dominance allowed Duke to become incredibly wealthy. He used some of that wealth to set up a power company called Duke Power, which ultimately became the giant power company Duke Energy. The reason he set it up was so that he and his brother, who owned some textile production facilities, could get a source of regularly available power. He also used some of his wealth to set up the Duke Foundation, an organization that is now the major endowment source for Duke University, as well as a number of other private universities in North Carolina and South Carolina. I'm not a native North Carolinian, but when I first moved to this state, one of the first things I noticed was all the areas that still had the legacy of tobacco production honored. If you go to downtown Durham, two of the main areas to go to are the American Tobacco Historic District and the Brightleaf District. Both of these areas used to be places for the production and storage of tobacco. Now they're places for restaurants, shops, and offices. However, despite the change in use, they kept those names. And in fact, those buildings are historically protected. Also, one of the largest running and biking trails in the Research Triangle is named the American Tobacco Trail. It's named that in part because it ends where the American Tobacco Company used to be headquartered. It's important to never forget our past so that we can more properly understand our present. North Carolina's past is full of connections to big tobacco, and it may cause the people of our state to continue to use tobacco at a higher rate than the national average. According to the Truth Initiative, an anti-tobacco organization, 17.9% of North Carolinians smoke, which is about 1% higher than the national average. More distressing, though, is the use of high schoolers. 12% of North Carolina high schoolers smoked, which is much higher than the national average of 8%. They also are more likely to use e-cigarettes at a rate of 22.1% when the national average is only 13.2%. This may be in part due to North Carolina having the fourth lowest cigarette tax in the nation. While the factories are no longer here, tobacco money still is, and that has helped shape the state in many ways, both good and problematic. Writing this speech has made me better understand the history of tobacco here, and hopefully you do as well. Thank you for your time.